So yesterday, I did a video about, turn this volume down over here. Go see if I can get the title of the video right. The title of the video was What to Do When the Messiah Appears. And in that video, I was asked a question. And I'll find the question. I was asked, you state that the preachers have stolen salvation from parishioners. I don't think they have that power. Reference Romans 8, verse 29 and 30. He is sovereign over salvation. All right? So we'll go ahead and go to Romans 8, verses 29 and 30. Let's start in verse 26. Because we need to get context. Now, the word saints in the prophets has always been the Jews. And in the New Testament, it is still the Jews. The saints are the holy people. And as Paul pointed out in Romans 11, Jehovah has not cast away his people. They are the elect. For the patriarchs' sake, they are. Therefore, they are the saints. Now, those who are grafted in also become. Those who are grafted among from the Gentiles also are. And the problem is, with Christianity today, they entirely reject the Jews in Israel as the saints. So, once again, context. Verse 26, likewise the Spirit also helped our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself makes intercessions for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And he that searches the hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because he makes intercessions for the saints according to the will of Jehovah. Verse 28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love Jehovah. Now, there are a lot of blog posts out there where people curse the name of Jehovah. They call him an austere and a hateful. And they use this Jesus or Jesus as opposed to Jehovah the Father. Against him. To them who are called according to his purpose. For whom did he foreknow? He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son. All right, whom did he foreknow? Let's go to Romans 11. Who's he speaking of here? Romans 11 and verse 1. I say, has Jehovah cast away his people? Jehovah forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Verse 2. Jehovah has not cast away his people whom he foreknew. Okay, once again, those who he foreknew are Israel. So when you read Romans 8, verse 28, verse 29, for whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Who is he speaking of? Israel. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, those he also called, and whom he called, them he called to be justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. Moreover, what shall we say to these things? If Jehovah be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, that is, all Israel, and those of the Gentiles whom he chooses. How shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of Jehovah's elect? It is Jehovah that justifies. Who is he that condemns? It is Messiah that died, rather, that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of Jehovah, who also makes intercessions for us. Now, you see what I mean about context? So, let's go back to the question again. I went over Romans 8, verses 29 through 30. And it says it is Jehovah who shall lay anything against the charge of Jehovah the Father. That's the reason why Yeshua or Yehoshua means Jehovah is salvation. And the Messiah's name declares that Jehovah, our Father in heaven, is salvation. Yeshua the Messiah will bring salvation. How do I put this? It's like what is written in the prophets. It's not good enough that he sends the suffering servant to bring back all of the tribes of Israel, all of them, but that he should also be a light to the Gentiles. He is Jehovah's right hand. Now, so using Romans 8 verses 29 and 30 to try to dispute what I said about preachers stealing salvation from the masses, I'm not happy with your argument. So I'm going to double down on what I've said. I'm going to clarify and double down. It is true that the preachers have stolen money and salvation from the masses. Now, here's what I'm going to do. there are just, okay, let me see if I can, is, okay. So Ezekiel 22 verse 27 and Matthew 7 and verse 15. Let's go to Matthew 7 and verse 15 first. Before I go into verse 15, let's start in verse 13. Enter you into the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. What is the opposite of destruction? Salvation. But the narrow gate leads to salvation, but the wide gate leads to anti-salvation or theft of salvation. Let me explain. Because straight or narrow is the gate, and narrow is the way which leads unto life, salvation, and few there be that find it. And in the same context, what does he say? So, what is the wide gate? The wide gate are the false prophets. Verse 15, beware of the false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that brings not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire, wherefore by their fruit you shall know them. Okay. When he says, do men gather grapes of thorns? No. Because thorn bushes cannot produce grapes. What do thorn bushes do? They draw blood. Hence, meaning murder. Or figs from thistles. No, you can't pick figs from thistles. What do thistles do? They poke and they draw blood. Now, what is he talking about? He's talking about the false prophets. Ravening wolves. Now we go to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 22 and verse 27. Now this was back in the day when Jehovah had a beef with Jerusalem. It says her princes in her midst are like ravening wolves tearing the prey to shed blood and to destroy souls. Same thing. Destroy souls. To follow these false prophets, you are selling your soul you're giving up your salvation. You're handing it over to somebody else. You don't think that I'm correct on this? From the words of the Messiah himself to Paul. Revelation 3 verse 11. And he is speaking to church in Philadelphia through John. Behold, I come quickly, Hold fast that which you have, that no man take your crown. What context is he speaking of here? It is in the context of what we just read in Ezekiel, what is it, 22? 22 verse 27. And Matthew 7 verse 15. So, I stand by what I say, what I said. It is correct. It is truth. And if you are going to sell your soul to the preacher, for what I have no idea why you would do that, you've got your warning. Don't. Oh yes, I know the reasons why people do it. I keep forgetting, you know. I don't have a wife. My one and only child is not with me. I've had to learn to live without the acceptance of men, of family, certain family members. Those that are not willing, how do I put this? I'll let Messiah himself. Matthew 10 and verse 37. He that loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Fear of being rejected by your family. So you go and follow the wide gate to your destruction. Loss of soul. Listen to the Messiah, enter into the narrow gate, for that is the way of life, not the gate of the false prophets, ravening wolves.